Hey guys, Omaha here. Today going over the third level spells tier list for Baldur's Gate 3. Quick disclaimer before the video starts. If you hear chirping in the background, I assure you it's nothing to worry about. I have some little helpers with me. These little guys. There's 4 of them, about 2 or 3 feet away from my desk. So yeah, they chirp a lot. And they're 4 days old, so yeah, it's fun. In case you want to see what that looks like, here they are right there. Got in this little tub, so yeah. It's fun. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. All right, our first spell is Animate Dead. So this is a level 3 spell that can be upcast to 4, 5, and 6 to get different summons. Level 3, you can get a skeleton with a bow, so is ranged, or a zombie that is melee that can apply an effect called Crawling Gnaw, and when an enemy is killed with that effect, they turn into a newborn zombie. So essentially you get zombie armies. And then level 4, you can summon a group of 3 skeletons or 3 zombies. Level 5, a ghoul or a flying ghoul, and then level 6, a group of 3 ghouls or 3 flying ghouls. So it's good into the late game. And the thing that's amazing about summons is you basically, since these last until a long rest, you can cast it outside of combat ideally, and it has its own action economy, and the enemy is wasting their turns to try to kill your summons. They don't always go for your summons, but when they do, they're wasting their turn essentially. And you get free damage out of it because you're not using your economy to deal damage with these summons. So all around, very good economy-wise, and skills well into the late game. The spell's never a bad idea to cast. In fact, it's always good to cast. I would always be using this. It's a really strong spell. Next, we have Beacon of Hope. So what this does is an AoE around you of 9 meters or 30 feet, and it requires your concentration to keep up. All your allies within that range will get maximum hit points when healed, and they also get advantage on wisdom saving throws and death saving throws. So all those effects are good. So say you get healed by Healing Word, 1d4 hit points, it's always going to be 4. Cure Wounds, 1d8, it's always going to be 8 hit points healed. Prayer of Healing, 2d8, so it's always going to be 16, and so on. That's a really good effect. Unfortunately, it's concentration to keep up, which makes sense. I think you're better off almost using a level 3 spell slot and your concentration on other things, but this is not bad by any means. I certainly think it's actually good, and you can build around that easily with like a Life Cleric. You could easily save your whole party several times. So it's kind of hard to rate between high end of B or the low end of A. I think for now, I'm going to put it at the top of B, and we may end up changing it to the low end of A by the end. It's definitely never going to go into C or lower because I think it's always going to be a good spell. It's never a bad option. After that, we have Bestow Curse. So Bestow Curse has a bunch of different options, and really the only one that I think personally is worth using is Dread. And it's very good. So Dread is going to fill them with Dread, possibly skipping their turn. It's a concentration slot, but using your concentration to skip enemy turns, especially if you use this on a high value enemy like a boss or something, that basically shuts them down. They're basically rolling, well, they are rolling every single turn on Wisdom to see if they get to even use their turn or not. So that's really, really good, especially if you can use like Arcane Acuity to guarantee. Yeah, that shuts down fights. So that is amazing. The others aren't really worth it in my opinion when you compare to that. So you can use additional damage to get an extra 1d8 necrotic damage only from you, your attacks and spells. So your allies won't be dealing extra damage. There is attack disadvantage. So they'll have disadvantage on attack rolls, but only against you, which also sucks. If it was against everybody, it would probably be worth using one here and there. And then there's disadvantage on all the other abilities. So strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. And I don't think it's worth using a level 3 spell slot for that. But yeah, your last 10 turns, and it's very, very strong if you use Dread. So you can shut down a boss fight. I'd say that's always really, really strong against a boss. Otherwise, I wouldn't really use it. But yeah, I think A tier is a good spot for that. It'll stay in the A tier probably for sure. For our next spell, we have Blinding Smite. So this is a smite, so like I said before in my other videos, smites are always good generally. You invoke a Heavenly Flare and possibly blind your target. So this uses an action and a bonus action in a spell slot. And if you miss, I believe it doesn't, cost on hit, yeah. You don't use your bonus action in your spell slot, so that's good. So this does your normal weapon damage, and it adds 3d8 or 3d24 radiant damage. So that's good damage. It then makes the enemy roll a constitution saving throw if you hit. And if they fail that, they're straight up blinded for 10 turns. I don't think they reroll the constitution saving throw every turn. I think they're just straight up blinded for those 10 turns. I'm almost positive that's how it works. I can't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure that's how it is. And that's extremely powerful. Getting them blinded for 10 turns and they're locked into that, on top of the decent damage this deals and radiant damage, you can add radiating orb, all that. Yeah, that's super powerful. So that's an easy A tier for me. Actually, Might put it above Bestow Curse. Yeah, I'll keep Bestow Curse higher just because the Arcane Acuity, if you can lock that in and guaranteed end turns on an enemy, that's pretty stupid OP. So we'll go with that for now. And after that, we have Blink. This is a very weird one, available only in combat. At the end of your turn, you roll a die 20. On 11 or higher, you vanish into the ethereal plane. So that's a 50-50 chance. While there, you can't be seen or harmed in this world. So when you are in that, you can move 6 meters or 20 feet, and then when you reappear, you're basically teleporting. So it's a little confusing, but at the end of your turn, you roll this, you vanish, and then when it's your turn again, or when you attack or whatever, you come out of it, and yeah, you can basically avoid being hit every turn. The problem with this spell, if it still works the way it did back when I had tried it in the beginning, it made me not like the spell. It broke your concentration on like haste or whatever concentration you had going. And this isn't a concentration spell. So it doesn't say that in here. I don't know if that's fixed or if that's how it's supposed to be, because I haven't touched this since then, because I really just hated that. If it does not break your concentration anymore, I would put it in the B tier, because I'd say it's always a pretty decent option. It is a 50-50 chance, and it's a level 3 spell slot, so it's a little expensive, and you're not always getting it. That's why it would be in B. But if it still breaks your concentration like I think it does, this is a C tier spell. So that's where I'll keep it, assuming that it's still the same as it was before. After that, we have Call Lightning. So you call down lightning in a 2 meter or 7 foot radius. So it's decent enough where you can hit 2 people, possibly 3 if they're really tight together. And after you cast this, it does 3d10 lightning damage, dex save to halve the damage, and puts up your concentration. And every turn after that, you can call down lightning again without using a spell slot for the next 10 turns. So that's really good. You can get this 2, 3, 4, however many times you can keep your concentration up for, and you get a lot of value out of that. 3d10 lightning damage. Being lightning damage, it'll double when the target's wet, so that's extremely, extremely strong. You can certainly build around this easily. Upcasting will add 1d10 lightning damage for each spell slot above the third, so you can go up to 4d10, or 4d10, 5d10, and 6d10. So yeah, good damage, especially if you can double that. I think that's an S tier spell. You get a lot of value out of it, especially if you can hit 2, 3 targets. Even if you don't, that's good value. Our next spell is Conjure Barrage. So you channel your weapon's essence to destructive widespread volley, deal your weapon damage, plus an additional 2d8 damage of the same type to enemies in a cone in front of you. You can use this melee or ranged. So yeah, it takes your normal weapon damage plus 2d8 of the same damage type, so piercing or slashing or whatever. And it's a cone of 9 meters or 30 feet. This is only available in the ranger at level 9. They can also run a dex saving throw to have the damage, actually, and that kind of hurts. But it's a really hard one to rate. It's okay. I think the damage is a little bit low for a level 3 spell. I think you're better off using other things most of the time. It's not necessarily bad. It's hard to see a world where this is just going to do a whole lot for you. I don't know. I think the physical damage and being so low isn't enough. So I think I'll put it in C. Admittedly, I have very little experience with it. I have used it, but it's very limited, being that it's only for rangers at level 9 or higher. So I think C tier is where I'm going to put that. Let me know in the comments if you guys think that should go higher, but I think that's where I'm going to put it for now. After that, we have Counterspell. Now this is, in my opinion, essential, especially in honor mode. So when an enemy casts a spell, you can use your reaction in a level 3 spell slot, or you can upcast this to completely just nullify the spell they just cast. So the great thing about it is if it's a spell that sucks or you don't think they're going to do much with it, you don't have to use this if you don't want to. But if it's something devastating, you can use your level 3 spell slot. If it's a level 3 spell or lower, it's guaranteed to nullify the spell. If it's a higher spell level than your level 3 spell slot, it's going to roll a check to see if you can nullify it, or you can upcast to the same level as their spell and guaranteed nullify it. So this is really, really, really good, especially since you know what they're going to be casting and you can choose to use it or not. This, yeah, I would always use it every single time if it's something you think you need to be saved from. I think this is one of the best spells in the game, and it's a reaction, so it's not using your action or anything. Certainly one of the better spells. And then after that, we have Crusader's Mantle. So this radiates a holy power that emboldens nearby allies. Their weapon attacks do an additional 1d4 radiant damage. So this is a 30-foot or 9-meter radius around you, and it uses concentration, but this is a good effect, so I'd say it's worth it. And everyone around you is just going to get an additional 1d4 radiant damage on their weapon attack. That includes summons. So if you're running a summon comp, or anybody in your party is running a summon comp, ideally you're going to be on the front lines with this. Yeah, that's going to give you a lot of damage output for you and your whole party. It's not amazing, but I think if you do build around it, it can be really good. So I think B tier is where I'm going to put that spell, because it's always pretty good, but it can be really good. It just depends. Next up, we have the spell Daylight. So you can enchant an item, or you can summon a sphere that emits a light of 15 meters or 50 feet. Honestly, I don't think it's worth casting, because you have the cantrip Light that basically does the same thing. And this is a level 3 spell slot, so it's kind of expensive to use. Yeah, it lasts until a long rest, and I don't know what else to say about it. I really don't think it's worth casting at all. It's not, I don't want to say it's trash, because I'm sure there are uses for it. I just never really use it because you can just use the cantrip Light, and I simply think that's the better option. Yeah, so I'll just go to the next one. That's where I'm going to put it. Next, we have Elemental Weapon. So you imbue a weapon with elemental power, it gets a +1 bonus to its attack rolls and damage rolls, and deals an additional 1d4 damage of your choice. So you can do acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder, which is good because you can take advantage of enemies' vulnerabilities. However, it requires your concentration to keep up, and I think that really hurts this spell. I don't think this effect is worth your concentration slot for. Besides, you can buff your allies with Crusader's Mantle and give all of them 1d4 radiant damage on all their attacks. I think that's simply a way better option than using this, but it's not terrible. So I think I'll stick it in the C tier. It's pretty mid, it's pretty basic. That's kind of where that's going to go. And then after that, we have Fear. So targets drop everything, so their weapon, they drop their weapon, and become fearful. They have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls. If the target ends their turn where they can't see you, they can make another saving throw to shake off their fear. So this makes them run away from you for 2 turns. And it's a wisdom saving throw, but you can use Arcane Acuity and build around it and make it guaranteed that they become fearful. And yeah, they're going to run away from you. And once they can't see you anymore, they'll make another saving throw to shake off their fear. But they're dropping their weapon as well, and this is an AoE of 9 meters and 30 feet. Uses concentration, but that's fine. This is such a good effect, and you can move, and the enemy's going to run away from you, and you can use an opportunity attack on them, so you get free damage, basically. And yeah, they drop their weapons, so they're basically useless. I think this is a phenomenal spell, and I think it's the best probably for the A tier. I don't know that I want to put it in S. I'll put it at the top of A, but I could see it easily going into the low end of S, possibly. If you build around it with Arcane Acuity, yeah, easily could go there. But I think the high end of A is a better spot. Next up, we have Feign Death. So you put your ally in a protective coma. They become resistant to all damage. They'll take half damage from everything except psychic. Disease and poison no longer have any effect. So this is removed when they're helped up. Yeah, it'll go for 10 turns. And honestly, it's not that great for combat utility. You could just use Sanctuary, and that would be way better for that. However, out of combat, you can use it to steal. So stealing from NPC with Feign Death does not trigger hostility as of hotfix 25, provided no other NPCs witness the crime, and the target NPC will not notice anything has been stolen upon waking. Failing a pickpocket attempt, however, will terminate the current pickpocketing session, which may not be resumed until the next turn during turn-based mode, but will not wake the NPC. So this is free stealing. It's really, really good for that. And then it can also help you from being interrogated by guards, but your party members might get interrogated. But still, that's really good for that part. In combat, like I said, you're better off using like Sanctuary. I don't think it's that good for combat. Purely off a combat perspective, I'd put it in D, but because of the stealing and stuff, I think it's really good at that. And so I'll put it at like the low end of B tier. And maybe it has some other combat use that I'm not really seeing. I haven't used it too much in combat because it's not that good, at least in the cases I've used it. And then we have Fireball. So this does what it says. It shoots a fireball, and it's 8d6 fire damage. So 8 to 48 fire damage, that is a lot of damage. It has a dex save to half the damage. The AoE is 4 meters or 13 feet, so that's a pretty big radius. Well, it's not huge, but it's enough to get 2 people and 3 people a lot of the time. So that's pretty good. And upcasting adds 1d6 per spell slot level above the 3rd, so that's okay. You're starting off with great damage off the rip, so yeah, you can get a lot of damage out of this. If you're hitting 2-3 people for 8 to 48 fire damage each, that's a lot of damage. So this is very consistently good. This is an A tier spell in my opinion. And then after that we have Gaseous Form, which is kind of hard to rate in my opinion. You transform yourself or an ally into a tiny gas cloud. You can't fall. You can fit through small openings, and you're very hard to damage. This will give you advantage on Constitution, Dexterity, and Strength saving throws. And you can't attack, cast spells, or talk while in this form. That's the downside. And and it's a concentration slot. So that's super valuable. And the spell isn't good enough to justify using concentration slot, in my opinion, at least for combat, even out of combat, because you're going to use it to get through small holes and stuff, being tiny in size. You're also resistant to all damage, which it doesn't say up there, but it says here. And that, you know, that makes you take half damage from everything, which is good. But there's a lot of ways to get that from other things. Like I said before, Sanctuary is just way better because you can't be targeted except by AoE spells, and that's a way lower level spell. So yeah, I think because it's a concentration spell, I don't think it's that good. This is honestly D tier spell, and I'll put it even behind Daylight. Next up, we have Glyph of Warding. So you put a giant circle on the ground with an AoE of 4 meters or 13 feet, and it has a bunch of different effects. And this will last until a long rest, or until triggered, which is what you're going for anyway. But you can put enemies to sleep, which is really good. Puts them to sleep for 2 turns. You've got Detonation, which can knock enemies back, and that's an insta-kill potential right there. AoE insta-kill potential if you knock them off cliffs. You have Thunder, Lightning, Fire, Acid, and Cold damage. So you can take advantage of enemies' vulnerabilities, and each one of those will do 5 to 8 or 5 to 40 damage. So that's really good damage, just a little bit less than Fireball. And you can tailor this to their vulnerabilities. So it's better than Fireball, in my opinion. And you have the option for these other two as well. So yeah, better than Fireball. It's pretty much always good because of the different options that you have. I think this is the best A tier spell. I don't necessarily think, I mean, it could be argued. If someone put this in S tier, I wouldn't like disagree with them too much on it. But I think the top of A tier is where I want to put that. And it'll probably be the top of A tier for the rest of the video. After that, we have Grant Flight. So you can bestow the ability to fly upon yourself or an ally. This uses concentration, which kind of sucks because there's so many, well, not so many, but there's easy ways to get flight through the Illithid tree and all that. Yeah, really because of how easy it is to get, I think that kind of knocks it down. And it's a concentration spell. But you can use it on an ally or on yourself, and it lets you fly for up to 10 turns, up to a range of 18 meters or 60 feet, and it uses your own movement speed. So it's good, but I can't put it any higher just because there's actually other things that are better, and it's simply easy to get. And then after that, we'll move on to Haste. This is, I don't know if it's the best spell in the game. It's definitely like top 3 for sure. I don't know if I would consider it the top or not, but it's definitely top 3. Target yourself or an ally to become hastened. You'll get a +2 bonus to your armor class. You get advantage on dexterity saving throws. Your movement speed is doubled, and you get an additional action per turn. And then when the condition ends, you become lethargic, but hey, worth it for what you get. It's a concentration spell, but I mean, who the heck cares? It's freaking a second action plus double movement plus advantage on saving throws plus 2 armor class, so you're even harder to hit. But yeah, last 10 turns, super good effect, extremely powerful. And yeah, like I said, this is one of the best spells in the game. I think I'll put it above Counterspell as my number 1 for the level 3 spells. All right, our next spell is Hunger of Hadar. So this is a really good spell. Creatures within the black sphere, you basically, well, I guess I should say that it summons a black sphere. Summons a black sphere around you in a 6 meter or 20 foot radius. It basically makes this cloud a black sphere, and the creatures within are blinded and take damage at the end of their turn and the start of their turn. There is no saving throw to resist the blind. They're blind, that's it. So then when they start their turn in the area, they take 2d6 cold damage, which can be doubled if they're wet. Creatures ending their turn in the area possibly take 2d6 acid damage, and that's where they're going to roll a dexterity save to negate the second form of damage, the acid damage, but they will take the cold damage. And the area is difficult terrain, so they have half the movement speed, so it's hard for them to get out of that. So they'll be blinded, it's hard to get out of it, and which that just increases your chances of getting the acid damage and the cold damage on them. Well, I guess their cold damage, since it's your turn when you activate this, they'll get the cold damage because they start their turn in it, but the acid damage, that'll help you get the acid damage because it'll be hard to get out of. So it is concentration, but it's so good. It's one of the best crowd control spells in the game, probably. And it's a solid A tier spell. I think it's definitely going in the A tier, but I don't know exactly where. I'm trying to think if it's better than Bestow Curse. Bestow Curse really shines on bosses. That's where it's really going to just be super, super effective if you have Arcane Acuity and stack that up. But this is good against like everybody, so I think I'll put it higher than that. After that, we have Hypnotic Pattern. So you hypnotize creatures that can see the pattern, that cannot attack you, that cannot move or act. This can be cast while you're silenced. So basically, you cast this. It's a 9 meter, 30 foot radius. It's concentration to keep that effect going, but it's for 2 turns.
That's the only negative I'd say is really it's just only 2 turns. But shutting them down where they can't move or do anything is very, very strong. So I think it's slightly worse than Fear, and I think Glyph of Warding is still better as well. But I think, yeah, the 2 turns is a little low, and that's the only thing that really kind of hurts this, but it's still good. It doesn't do damage either. I guess that kind of hurts it, but at least with Fear, you can provoke opportunity attacks and get some damage out of that. I think we'll stick it here. I think that's a good spot. And then after that, we have Lightning Arrow. So shoot an arrow of lightning. After the arrow hits, smaller bolts snake out from the target towards nearby creatures. So it does 4 to 32 lightning damage, and then to the other targets, it'll do 2 to 16 lightning damage. Dexterity save to have the damage. So I think the damage is a little low for a level 3 spell. You can double it while they're wet, which is good. And then upcasting will deal an additional 1d8 for every spell slot above the 3rd, both the primary and the burst. So that is good, really good upcasting. But for this damage for a level 3 spell, even though it is lightning, you have Lightning Bolt, which is the same spell, and we're going over that next, and that's so much better. It does way more damage. That is really what hurts the spell, because you have the option for that instead. So I think this is probably the best C tier spell on this list. All right, our next spell is Lightning Bolt, and this shoots a beam straight out with a range of 30 meters or 100 feet. I guess it's not a range. That's how long the line is. It's 30 meters or 100 feet. So that's a really far range. And it does 8d6 or 8 to 48 lightning damage. So lightning damage is amazing because you can double it when they're wet, which is easy to do. There's a dex save to have the damage, but that is a lot of damage, especially when you can double it. And you can easily hit 2 targets with this. It's a little harder to hit 3 because it's a line, but it's still easily doable. Not easily, it's still doable. And you can even hit 4, whatever targets. It just depends how it's set up. And it depends how much movement speed you have, because you can move around and kind of angle it the way you want. But super good. And the upcasting adds an extra 1d6 lightning damage for each spell slot above the 3rd. So it's whatever upcasting, but the damage is really good off the rip. So I like it better than Fireball because I like lightning damage more. And I think I will put it right here. And then after that, we have Mass Healing Word, which is Healing Word, but in mass. It's up to 6 creatures for 1d4 plus your spellcasting modifier hit points. So the healing isn't that good. It's only 1d4, but you can revive your whole party with this, which is amazing. If you're the last person, very situational, obviously, but you can also apply on heal effects to your whole party as well, which is really good if you're building around that. Upcasting does an extra 1d4 for every spell slot level, so that's that's pretty good. You don't really want to upcast it, I guess. I shouldn't have said it's pretty good. It's whatever because it's just low hit points, but you really just want to use this for reviving and on heal effects. But it's really good at that because it's for your whole party basically. So I think upper B tier's a good spot for that. After that, we have Plant Growth. So this does an AoE of 6 meters or 20 feet, and it's a bunch of plants that make their movement speed quartered, and there's no saving throw against it. It's guaranteed. So everybody just comes to a halt, basically, and any fire damage will burn away the surface. So don't cast Fireball or anything like that. But yeah, it's really good at slowing down enemies. I just like Spike Growth more, but it's not bad at all. It's certainly good. I think it's probably right in the middle of B tier. All right, next up we have Protection from Energy. So you touch a creature, it gets resistance to acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage. Basically all the elements. And it's a concentration spell, so you have to keep your concentration up to keep that effect on them. Honestly, I think it's kind of just whatever. There's a lot of ways to get resistances in this game. I don't really think it's terrible, but it requires a little bit of foresight, I guess, knowing what the enemy can do. Even still, I don't think it's super amazing. I think it's just super basic. I don't think it's terrible or bad, but it's not really that good either. After that, we have Remove Curse, and I mean, it does what it does. Remove a curse or hex. Kind of hard to rate just because it's good at what it does, but that's all it does type of thing. I almost think I should put an RP, but it's not, I don't know. It is something you don't really want to use in combat, I guess. You'd probably wait till after, but I think we'll just stick it in C. I think the end of C is just whatever. I don't know really where to rate that one. And then Revivify. It's kind of in the same situation as that, where you revive a companion, they return to life with 1 hit point. Ideally, in combat, you're able to heal them and get them up before they die. I know sometimes it's happened to me where they just get killed within the same turn before they can get up because the enemies attack them or whatever. Pretty rare, I guess, but yeah. Ideally, you heal them before they get up, or after combat, if they're dead, you revive them instead of using a scroll or saving money from withers. I mean, that's what you're using this for. So it's kind of in the same situation as Remove Curse, where I just don't know. Kind of hard to put it somewhere. So I think C is good. And it does have use in combat. That's why I'm not really putting it in RP. All right, our next spell is Sleet Storm. This is a 30-foot or 9-meter AoE that douses fire, creates an ice surface, which causes enemies to slip and fall prone, which basically ends their turn. Forces spellcast to succeed a concentration saving throw in order to maintain concentrations. The ice surface is really good because it's difficult terrain. They move half as much on it. And then again, it knocks them prone, so that ends their turn. So this is a really good spell. And it's got a big AoE, so you can potentially end multiple turns from the enemy. And being able to end enemies' concentration is also very valuable. This is a really good spell. Got a lot of A tier spells. There's a lot of good level 3 spells in the game. I think I'll have to stick it here. I think it's upper end of A tier. It's a really good spell. Then we have Slow. You alter time around up to 6 enemies to slow them. They won't get far, can't do much, and they're easier to hit. So this is a concentration spell that lets you target up to 6 enemies. And for 10 turns, or until your concentration breaks, their movement speed will be halved. Their armor class and dexterity saving throws reduced by 2. They can only take an action or a bonus action, not both. They can't take any reactions, so no opportunity attacks. Can't make more than 1 attack per turn, and their spells cast might be delayed for 1 turn. So this is an insanely strong effect on up to 6 enemies. This is just, yeah, it's really strong. And it's a wisdom saving throw, so with Arcane Acuity, again, you can get this up really easily, and it's gonna go, I think this is up here with Fear. Let's stick it there. Next up, we have Speak with Dead. So this does what it says. It lets you speak with the dead unless they're already undead creatures. Skeletons and creatures killed with acid, fire, lightning, necrotic, and radiant damage no longer have a mouth and can't be made to talk with a spell. So it's ritual, so you can cast it for free outside of combat, and I don't think anybody in their right mind would ever cast this during combat. I don't even know if you actually could. Never tried it. But yeah, it's a cool spell. But it doesn't really belong in any of these tiers, so it's going to go in RP. Then we have Spirit Guardians. So you do an AoE around you of 3 meters or 10 feet, and these little Spirit Guardians fly around you in a circle, dealing 3d8 radiant or 3d8 necrotic damage per turn. The per turn is a little weird. I mean, it is per turn if they stay in the radius, so I guess that makes sense. But yeah, you choose between radiant or necrotic, depending which one you want, and their movement speed will be halved as well. Casters can't become invisible while concentrating on the spell. So yeah, it's a concentration spell, but it's super good. You basically have those around you, and you run into enemies to deal damage. And if they stay within that AoE around you, they'll take damage on the next turn as well. Combine this with Radiant, where you can get Radiating Orb. And if you have a lot of movement speed, you can hit like an insane amount of enemies. I mean, really, you could hit easily 4, 5, 6 enemies with this, no problem. So you get a lot of value out of it. Upcasting does an additional 1d8 of whatever damage type you want per spell level. Super good. Easily an S tier spell. And I think I will stick it right in here. It's pretty much always good. Yeah, I'll stick it right here. After that, we have Stinking Cloud. So this creates a nauseating cloud of gas that can prevent creatures from taking actions. Targets must make a Constitution saving throw every turn while they're in the area of effect, or become nauseous. And nauseous makes it so they can't take actions. So this is a really good effect, extremely powerful, and it's your concentration, but it's got a range of 20 feet. That's actually good. But the thing is, they can just move out of this. So you're only getting 1 turn of this guaranteed. And, well, it's a DC 13 Constitution saving throw, so not necessarily guaranteed. But honestly, they're probably going to move out of the radius. So it's max 1 turn. And that makes it pretty terrible, in my opinion. I'm thinking it's not trash because the 1 turn is good. It's just you can use all these other things up here for more turns than 1. I mean, yeah, I would never use this. I don't know. I would have generally avoided it, I should say. I think I'll stick it at the end of D. It's almost in the trash tier. After that, we have Vampiric Touch. Touch an enemy to siphon their life force and regain half as many hit points. For 10 turns, you can use this again without expending an additional spell slot. This does 3d6 necrotic damage. It's a concentration spell to keep using this without using a spell slot. But upcasting does an additional 1d6 necrotic damage. And yeah, you can use your action every turn to recast, so that's pretty good. The thing about this spell is the damage is so low, and you're only getting half that back as healing. I really don't think this is ever worth casting. There's just so many other ways to deal damage or to heal. You're kind of just getting like half of each thing. I don't know. I really don't think it's worth casting. This is probably the only thing that I'll put to trash tier. I'll never use this. It's not worth casting in my opinion. And then our last spell is Warden of Vitality. So this uses an action to put an aura around you, and you can cast Restore Vitality as a bonus action to heal yourself or nearby allies by 2d6 hit points. Yeah, it's a really good spell that over 10 turns you get a lot of healing out of. So you basically use your action once, and then you can use your actions for attacks for the rest of the time. And it's actually concentration free. I'd say this is probably, I think, the top of B. I'm pretty happy with this tier list. I don't think I need to move anything around this time. So drop a like if you enjoyed the video. If you didn't like the video, you know what to do, I guess dislike. After these tier lists, I may be moving away from Baldur's Gate 3, simply because it's 9 months after release and it's a single player game. It's not really going to be getting any more updates, at least as far as I can tell. So, subscribe if you want to see more of me, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you in the next one.